Tuesday Drive.
Our species can only survive if we have obstacles to overcome. You remove those obstacles. Without them to strengthen us, we will weaken and die. They are some of the immortal words of Kirk, the original Star Trek captain from Gene Roddenberry's creation. Now, I wonder when Kirk was uttering those words, had he an inkling that the world was going to endure the coronavirus? Although I guess technically he utters those words 260 years in the future from the Milky Way galaxy. So perhaps he knew about the coronavirus in 2000 when he spoke those words. I don't know. Oh my gosh, I'm just so confused at the moment when it comes to all this space continuum business. But, hopefully my next guest will be able to help us out a little. I'd like to welcome to the show Captain Ross Manuel from the USS Animus, who is docked, I think that is the word, in Canberra. Hello, Captain.
Good afternoon. Or is it good evening?
No.
Good evening.
Well, look, I'll take a bit of both. Sorry, you're the captain, so you know best, I've got to say. Now, do I call you Captain or do I call you Ross?
Ross is fine.
Ross is fine. That's good. We're going informal. Ross, can you help me out a bit? When Kirk uttered those words, is he in the future or past? Because, like I said, I'm very confused.
Well, historically, it would have been set in the future.
Right.
But when William Shatner, the actor, uttered those words, it was right on the cusp of another historical moment, which was the tail end of the Civil Rights Movement in the United States.
Right.
So it's not entirely possible that the obstacles that he was referring to was that. But even then, that's the thing that's still affecting us now.
And that's what they say about the original Star Trek is the era that it was created in was kind of defining a generation at the time as well, wasn't it?
Definitely, yes. It was at the time, the freedom movement, the hippie movement, as you know, was still heading towards the end of its run. The 70s were starting to come into effect, and where younger generations were starting to question things and the status quo. And also you have the overarching issues of the Vietnam War and the Cold War, these massive touchstones in history. Here we had a TV show that was set on 250 years in the future, where you had a Russian and an Asian on the bridge in important roles.
And I think that's what stood out to a lot of people too, wasn't it, at the time? Because I don't think this had really been done on mainstream television.
No, definitely, it had definitely not. At that time, if you ever saw an Asian actor or an African American actor, they were always in a secondary role. They were the driver, they were the bodyguard, they were the maid, they were the villain. You never saw them as an equal. And it's the same like with the Russians. You never had a Russian character on the show unless he was the big bad. Whereas
in Star Trek, of course, he helped the crew out.
Definitely.
Now, Ross, throughout the show, I've been talking about making communication warp speed with the USS Animus. And look, for some listening today, they may be thinking, oh gosh, I think Stephen's finally lost his marbles. What is the USS Animus?
So the USS Animus is the Southern New South Wales and ACT branch of Starfleet International, which is the second largest specific fan club in the world. In regards to that, it is entirely focused on Star Trek. There are 200 subgroups in 22 regions, and there's about 4,500 members globally.
And so did you say that you guys one of the biggest?
Yeah, we're one of the biggest. The only group there are a couple that are tangentially are equal, but the only group that's really bigger than us is the 501st Legion, so the Star Wars fan club, because they have over 5,000 members. So our two groups, we leapfrog each other every so often, where there'll be times where we have the most number of members, and then a new Star Wars media will come out, and then they will take over.
So where are you guys based?
We're based in Canberra, but headquartered from Goulburn.
Oh, how does that work? Does that involve warp speed or the teleporter?
Yeah, yeah, and it's only about an hour.
That's true. So you could just drive it, really, couldn't you?
Yeah,
Save the core reactor, just drive instead.
exactly.
So how long have you
So the
been?
bulk of the crew are in southern New South Wales in Canberra. So.
And can anybody join the group?
Definitely. So anyone can join the Animus. That's no problem. That's free of charge. We have a very active social media presence, and we do. Back before we could do things, we did a lot of meetups in person and things like that. But the international group that we're a part of is a paid membership, but you don't need that to be a part of the Animus.
So where does Animus come from? What does Animus mean, if it means anything?
Animus is Latin. When we originally came up with the group, when the core members came up with the group, we were all big fans of Assassin's Creed, and Animus is a core plot point within Assassin's Creed. But it also means, in Latin, the mind in a great variety of meanings, the rational soul of man, is the intellect, his consciousness, will, intention, courage, spirit, sensibility, feeling, passion, pride, vehemence, wrath. It is the breath, life, and soul. It's basically the instincts that govern a person's actions, which is what we think greatly examines that future drive to better oneself.
That is very deep, I've got to say, for such a simple word, Ross.
Oh, it is. It also looks really cool on business cards.
I can imagine. You guys must have a pretty cool logo too, I dare say.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, when did you start? Well, when did you first discover Star Trek?
I first discovered Star Trek as a child. My earliest memory of it is in primary school. I'd get home and I would watch the episodes of the Next Generation that my parents had recorded on VHS at 2 a.m. the night before, and I would watch it. This is probably in year 5, and then I would go to school and I would play out Star Trek with my friends in the playground, and go on adventures through the playground on away teams. And my mother fondly regales to anyone who will listen a story of catching a very young me standing on the roof of the cubby house, screaming at the top of my lungs to all that could hear, to bloody go where no man has gone before, and then her having to correct me that no, it's too boldly.
That must be permanently etched onto your mind now.
Oh, it is. It definitely is. And it's one of those things because my parents are both big Trekkies like I am. So whenever, we get the group together or my parents are somewhere nearby, the story comes up. And it's one of those hilarity things that, that parents love to remember about their children.
I can tell that you've obviously got some very fond memories of, as you said, Star Trek: The Next Generation. What do you make of the modern remakes that we've got now that that the CBS are sort of churning out, like Discovery and Picard?
I actually think that overall they are basically retellings of the current climate. Like the original series was written in the shadow of the civil rights movement, of the Vietnam War, the Cold War, so its stories were very much focused on that. The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager were all set, in that post-period, from the late 80s to the early 2000s, and their stories were a little bit more optimistic. The modern Star Trek, so Discovery, Enterprise, they're almost going back to where we started. You look at, what's the 2010s really been? It's not a interesting point in history with racial tensions in the United States. Things about gender equality coming into effect. So it was fairly common that these new Star Trek shows would show those kind of concepts. The infallible human race. This belief that Star Trek we always thought was this utopia, but that was a vision from the 60s. Whereas if we were to look at the Star Trek of now, it's not as clean as it was. And I think the way, Discovery addressed the original series, gave it a nice new color, nice new touch up of paint, and said, yeah, that was optimistic, but this is probably a little bit more realistic. And with Picard going, yeah, actually, Starfleet did a lot of questionable stuff during his run. It's a great way to bring new life into a franchise. This has been going on for over 50 years with over 900 episodes.
Now, is Picard your favourite character?
He is, definitely.
Right.
Picard is definitely my character, my favourite. He pointed out that violence wasn't necessary to solve to solve a problem. He knew when to fight when he had to. He knew when to walk away, but he also knew that no, I'm not. If I don't do anything, the bad guy's going to win. So I will jeopardize my career, my safety, my life to fight the injustice. Stand there and go, what you're doing is wrong, and I do not approve of that. And I don't care if you're an admiral in Starfleet or a ruler or a politician or a despot. It's like, no. Picard once said, when questioned, would you be willing to throw your crew's life away? And to which Picard replied with, if the cause was just, I fully believe my crew would stand by my decision.
There's some very deep words there indeed. Hey, Ross, I'm running out of time. I've got one last question for you. Look, some people, they may be having a bit of a chuckle about Star Trek Day, but do you think there's an important message behind this day?
Definitely. I definitely do think there's an important message behind Star Trek Day and Star Trek. It's that when Gene Roddenberry first came up with the idea, he said that, the only way for humanity to make themselves better and, reach the stars was to look at themselves and realize and fix the problems they've created. And that's why in the original series and in the Next Generation, your enemies are so relatable. Now, you saw, racial inequality, racism, homophobia, sexism, gender issues, transphobia, all the issues that we're dealing with, they addressed on TV 20 to 30 years before anyone would even dare to address it. But because they looked at it through different colored looking people with antennas and, bumpy foreheads, the censors were able to let them through it. But, you read it, you look at it and you go, yeah, they're talking about the problems that we're facing. So, it's very important that we remember this point in history.
Well, Captain Manuel, thank you so much for your time today. And can I just say, and this is going to sound like really nerdy, but live long and prosper.
And peace and long life to you.
Thank you very much. That was Captain Ross Manuel from the USS Animus speaking to us, not from the Milky Way galaxy, but a little closer to home, the capital of Australia, Canberra. And we'll pop the interview up soon on the Tuesday Drive and Triple UFM Facebook pages. And don't forget, if you head to one of those two pages, you can share your favourite Star Trek character with me and even let me know who or what is your favourite series.
Star trekking across the universe.
This is Tuesday Drive.